Welcome everybody to negotiating this episode 2, The Art of the Ask. In a moment, let's introduce Patrick right now. I'm gonna give you a little preamble before we get busy with Patrick. But Patrick I've known since 2004 when we Sotheby's pals and an executive team there. Every time I have met Patrick and every time I've spent time with Patrick, I see a man who is poised, who's confident, who is knowledgeable, who's funny, who's engaging. And when we talk about the art of the ask and asking questions, we're going to talk about what are the dynamics of that. But in Patrick, I've always been so impressed at your poise and how you conduct yourself, and whether you're running a meeting and talking to a whole host of people, or I'm one-on-one with you, or we're in a small strategy session, you're always so present and focused, and yet you allow your authentic humor to come out. And I think that's such an important dynamic of what we do when we're asking for what we want. Let's give ourselves the freedom to show all of who we are, and you do that so beautifully. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And I think those that don't know you are going to get a great opportunity to really engage with you.
So no pressure is what you're saying.
No pressure whatsoever. You've already got this. This is just a float for you. Know this. We're going to move pretty fast. We got a fair amount of content to cover. I'm going to have notes for everybody from my perspective, and there will also be a recording of this that we'll send out tomorrow. So you'll have that. So those that aren't able to tune in will have that opportunity. So the intention of today is, my wife asked me this morning, what am I excited about with today? And I responded, I'm looking forward to sharing the best of what I know to give people the confidence to ask for anything that they want. So imagine that for a moment, that you had the confidence, the poise to ask for whatever it is that you wanted, be it a raise, be it in the real estate world, an 8% commission to sell a home, whatever that was, to ask for the love of another, all of those dynamics of an ask. You felt so poised, prepared, confident, and at peace with whatever the answer is, that the inhibitions would wash away and you'd move forward with your ask. So that's the intention. But before we ask a question, I think we need to ask ourselves a preparation question before the ask. And that question is, I've broken it down into two things. Well, before I get to that, what's the most important precious commodity that we have? I would say it's time. Patrick confirmed that with me. And the expression time is money. Well, how do those two equate? Well, the time to create whatever it is we want is that space in our lives to move forward, either efficiently or conversely, we can waste time. And if we're looking at the ability to ask clarifying questions, empowering questions, asking for what we want, the clearer we are with that, the more authentic we are in our ask, and the more detached we are with our ask to the outcome that could come forward, we stand ourselves a far greater opportunity to really know whether we're on course or off course. And when we're on course, we accelerate time. When we're off course, we take away time, we lose time. So that's the dynamic. So as you listen in today and you hear from both of us, and we're going to open it up to your questions as well, to what degree are you prepared and confident that whatever it is that you ask for, number one, you know that you can deliver on your end. If I'm asking you for your listing, let's say, we'll take it to the real estate environment, am I absolutely confident that I know all the nuances and the details to get the job done? Am I the best one to represent you in my mind and in my heart, in my belief? If I am, my ask is easy, right? But if I'm concerned about the competition out there and I haven't done the work, the homework to truly be confident in my ability, my ask, I may never even ask, right? So that's the first dynamic of what I think we need to really understand. And the second dynamic is, I'm confident in what I want to do, and am I worthy to receive it? And when I say the question, ask the question of myself, am I worthy to receive it? Do I deserve it? Am I going to do everything that I say I'm going to do? And am I allowed to be taken care of as well? And if we come from that perspective, we stand it's a fertile ground to start asking questions. So, Patrick, any thoughts on any of that before we start talking about the question and the art form of that question?
Yeah. You know what I love about what you're talking about today is it's not so much, an equation of how to put a sentence together to ask the perfect way. We're talking about the philosophy of knowing that you've got the answers and you've got the reasoning and the purpose to do what you're going to do. So it's really about having that inner confidence that allows you to feel comfortable to ask truly uncomfortable questions.
Right. And we're going to find out, are there really uncomfortable questions as we really dive into this. One of the things you touched on, Patrick, that I want to expand on for just a moment is this idea that, well, what if if I don't believe I'm not confident I'm going to uphold my end of the bargain, or I'm not worthy to really receive what I'm asking for, like a raise from as a case in point. I'm asking for a raise. Do you really believe you're worthy for the raise? If you don't feel you're worthy for the raise, the authenticity is not going to shine through. And only 7% of a communication are the words that come out of our mouth. The rest of it is body language, is tone, all of those things. So the first encouragement for those of you tuning in is, if you don't believe that you have that juice, go inside, do the work you need to do so that you can emerge from that, and do it as quickly as you can so that you can get in and play the game at a far greater level, and all the beauty that comes with it. So
can I add to that real quick?
Yeah, I want you to.
So it's interesting. A lot of times we're told as salespeople to always be closing, always be asking for the business, always, when you're at the laundromat, when you're at the grocery store, to ask for the business. And I find that there are many agents out there that are uncomfortable with that ask. And they're uncomfortable because they feel like they're asking for someone to give them something. And I think, the truth be told, what you need to change your mindset to think about is, you're not asking them to give you something. You're offering to give them something that's priceless. You're offering to give them your expertise, your time, your professionalism, your knowledge, your care, your understanding, your fiduciary. So when you ask, hey, if you or any of your friends need any assistance with real estate, I only work by referral, and I would love to be the person to help you. And if in your back of your mind, you're feeling like you're handing out $1,000 bills because you're so valuable, you're giving them something, it's much different than, oh, by the way, if I need more work, so if you have anybody, go ahead and send them my way. It's just a completely different mindset. So having that inner knowledge and understanding helps you be that gift.
An incredible springboard into the next aspect of what we're talking about. So those of you that know me have heard me ask this question: what is your mindset when you make your offering? Is it coming from a selling perspective or an educating perspective? And what Patrick's talking about is this idea that I've done my work. I know, let's stay with real estate, right? I know the comps, I know the contracts, I know I can bank on my reputation in this business because I've been doing it for that extended period of time. I know the brokerage community. I know all the dynamics of negotiation, and I know what works and what doesn't work, and when you speak and when you shut up. I've earned that, right? So when I ask for something and I go, well, what are you looking for in your broker? Whatever that answer is, I can bring forward my education consciousness to say, well, these are the things you may want to consider. And have you considered this? And when we start asking questions, knowing that we know the information and we're being of service to just offer up, as Patrick says, the $1,000 bills of our expertise, it truly is a consciousness that gives us the freedom to just ask for whatever we want, because we're not trying to take anything from them. We're just literally offering, how can I be of service? Those of you that know me know that I've got these 9 keys of negotiation. And the third one is very important. It's probably the most important one of them all. And it's my statement that says, whether you use me or not, I want to give you enough information so that you can make an informed decision that serves your needs. And that is the best way I can articulate the education philosophy mindset versus walking into an environment. And let's take it out of real estate for a second. So I want to raise, what do I got to do to sell myself to get this increase of money? Or I want, whatever it is, if you're thinking, how do I sell this person? How do I take something away? You're going to fall into a series of traps and mental mindsets that are going to question your own ability and question your resolve to deliver. And it's going to question your ability to even be prepared. And you're going to be seen through. It's not going to work. So as we go through this time together, really consider whatever I'm asking for, am I going at it from a place of how can I be of service? How can I educate you so that I can get you what you need as opposed to trying to take something from you? Yeah. So Patrick, you set the table on it. Anything else on that?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Whenever no one wants to be sold. I think in real estate, it's a little bit of a misnomer that it's a sales business. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of times where selling comes into play when it comes to negotiating through, inspections and pricing and all of that. But really in real estate, our clients know when they were home. I think they need us to educate them, not sell them. And when you hear about people using systems of, using yeses to get to the ultimate yes, asking question after question after question, people know they're being played and it makes them uncomfortable. And quite frankly, it makes them not trust you. So if you truly come from a place of inside truly wanting to do the best for them and caring for them and not selling to them, but educating them and making sure that their eyes are wide open in this transaction so that in the end, they know exactly what they've gotten. I think that's the key.
I was talking to a client yesterday and I just checked in and I gave him the macroeconomics. I had listened into the Beverly Hills office meeting that Sarah Kosowski runs. It was beautifully done. And we heard from, these are metrics, right? I heard from escrow openings versus cancellations. I heard from mortgage. We talked about pre-approval rates and how many people are looking to be pre-approved right now. And that number is up. And I look at, then I hear from title and what are the title numbers and that our margins are off 50%, but it's no longer 75%. Those are all data points that we use as part of that preparation where I can say, here's the market snapshot right now from a macro perspective. What do you think about that? How are you doing with that information? And these are people that the stakes are high, right? This is the buy and a sell, and we're looking at probably $15 million of sales at the end of the day. And that relationship is everything. It's not about the transaction. The transaction will take care of itself when the buyer and the seller truly have a definitive need. And what we've done is educated them to keep their eyes on the prize. Don't get into the myopicness. We're going to dive into some questions that may inhibit us from asking questions that serve as guideposts to keep us in that mindset of educating and staying at that level. So let's dive into this. So Patrick and I have put some questions together, and I'm going to say there are 4 categories of questions, right? That we consider the scary questions. And the first one is, we're scared to ask questions where we're not prepared for the answer. So I'll rattle off all 4 of them, and then we'll lean into it a little bit. So you're scared to ask questions where you're not prepared for what may come back at you, right? Because you may not have the information, you may not be prepared for it. Number 2, we don't want to hear the answer that may come back at us. 3, we're too attached to the outcome, and we don't, the fear of rejection is just paralyzing. And then the last one, we make assumptions like, well, I'm not even going to ask the question because I know the answer already. So if you can relate to any of those, well, join the club because we all have. Patrick, I want to add, before we start to give an analysis of those questions and how we play to it, were you always this confident? Did you always walk into a room and breeze into the room and say, I got this?
No, and and I think it's probably a huge facade in a way. Maybe all those years in my early years of acting, but I think everybody has natural insecurities. I just think that's part of life. And I think for me, making fun of myself and making fun of situations, any of you that have been in meetings with me, is kind of my way of kind of bringing down the humility and letting, sort of my making fun of myself make it easier to be around people.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly have the same fears as everyone else when it comes to, getting up and speaking in front of people. But at the end of the day, when you know the subject matter really well and you're truly just talking from your heart, it makes it not scary. So I don't think it's so much confidence as it is preparation and just knowledge. And the older we get, the more we understand and have gone through situations that are easy for us to share with other people. So it's really more of that than it is a confidence, I would say.
Yeah, and I if I could distill it, I think it's the authenticity of who you know who you are. And as we get comfortable in our own skin, it makes it so much easier to do everything, every interaction, every relationship, every ask, and also how we enjoy our own company when no one else is around. So I have the question, asking the 4 questions again. Yes. So we'll dive through them one at a time. So a scary question. I'm not prepared for the answer. Right. So let's say you're newer to the business, right? And you're saying, how many other agents are you working with, when in the back of a mind, what you hope you don't hear is from the seller, well, I'm also interviewing the neighborhood expert, right? So you've been in the business 6 months and you're going up against someone with a 25-year track record. How in goodness name am I going to beat that person? So let's not ask that question. Right. So that would be my example of something we're not prepared to answer on that level. So another one.
And Nick, on that one.
Yeah.
So from that one, the preparation, because I was there, I was 21.
Oh, we're gonna get to preparation. Oh, don't time out, Patrick. Don't go yet. Yeah. We're gonna give him antidotes. We're just. I want him to relate to the first one. Okay. But I love where you're going.
Okay.
So number 2, I don't want to hear the answer. And the classic one, certainly beyond real estate, is, do you love me? And, at the end of the day, we all want love. And, do you appreciate me? Do you like me? We don't want to hear that answer. So we don't ask that question. That's a really scary question. Number 3, we're too attached to the outcome. Can I have this listing? Can I have the raise? Can I have whatever it is? I'm scared to ask the question because I don't want to hear the answer, because it's going to be a rejection that I don't want to deal with. And then lastly, when I assume I already know the answer, well, they're not giving me the listing, so I'm not even going to ask, right? That person, I can't even relate to that person. Why would they want to work with me? I'm not going to do that. So do you see how really doing your homework, being prepared as the first dynamic, and then the I'm worthy to receive because I've done the work and because I'm a good person, I know I'm going to take care of these people. Those 2 premises start to dissolve the scariness of these questions. And let's get into the antidote. So not prepared for the answer. Patrick, go ahead, please. How you dealt with that when you were 22.
Yeah, when I was 22 and at open houses and meeting clients, and you didn't want to hear that answer of, are you working with another agent? But when you start to change your mindset behind that, instead of being afraid of that answer, you start to think about, well, wait a second, they may be working with someone. And if it's a top agent, they're going to be a busy person that's maybe not going to give this first-time home buyer the attention they need. And I'm brand new, so I've got plenty of time. So you prepare in your mind mentally to be able to answer the question of, hey, you could work with someone who's been doing this for 20 years, but no one's going to work harder than me because I'm 22, I'm hungry, I know the market, I eat, breathe, and sleep it every single day. And that's why you want to work with me, and win them over with enthusiasm instead of experience, because you don't have the experience. So you have to be true to who you are and what you can offer.
Now, that's an excellent distillation. And where that came from was the time that Patrick took prior to knowing that he's going to be asked that question, right? How many of us walk into situations and we know that there are going to be questions asked, and or there's certain questions we hope won't be asked? Well, you got to spend the time to invest in yourselves to consider, Well, this question is probably going to be asked. That question is probably going to be asked. Why don't I take the time right now and figure out what my answers are and make them authentic so that when that question does come up, I can nail it. And, or more importantly, why don't you pose the question yourself? You may be looking at me at 22 years old and I don't need to shave more than 4 times a week. And you're probably talking to everybody else in town. May I answer why I would suggest you hire me over anybody else? Get out in front of it, because you then take your enthusiasm and you can use it to become a confidence on that level. So a question that came up, what do I say when someone says, I don't know? Funny, we're going to get to that, Darcy. So sit tight for a second. We're going to deal with the dreaded response of I don't know. So, so to the second question of what we're scared of, I don't want to hear the answer. I always want to hear the answer because I want to know where I stand. Am I in the game? Am I not in the game? Please, if we're talking about time and its preciousness, why would I want to spin my wheels in my delusional state because I'm not scared, because I'm too scared to ask the question, so I don't even consider what the answer could be? Because, and here's the bizarre part of it, right? We all want to feel like we're busy. We all want to feel like we're productive. But when we don't ask clarifying questions, when we don't ask the questions and be okay because we're scared of the answer, we do ourselves a huge disservice because we put ourselves in a position to waste time. If I say, Patrick, can I have your listing? No, I'm going with this guy named Mark. I've known him for years. He's my guy. Great. And if I still like Patrick, I don't want to have a beer with him. If I want to have a cup of coffee, we can still do that. And I have no attachment to the outcome. And I'm not trying to do something that's not authentic or try to force something. Patrick's told me where he stands. Great, move on to the next. The biggest challenge for those of us that, one, are not organized, and or two, we don't want to face the reality that we have time on our hands. Now, what do? We have a glorious opportunity to really consider what is our strategy now, especially in this time that we have to ourselves, and in the pause, really get strong. Ask yourselves the questions that you're okay with the answers inside of you, so that you can get better and get stronger, so that when you come out there, you have the confidence that we're talking about. So I want to hear the answers. Patrick, are you in that same camp?
Absolutely. I had an agent that said something so simple that was her mantra every day she came to work with it. And it was show up, meaning make sure you've done all your homework, you're ready to go, and you show up. Second, do 110%. Always give it your all. Everything you do, give it your all. And the last one, which is the odd one, don't be tied to the results. And by not being tied to the results, it allowed her to show up every day with her 110%. And great things happened. And sometimes she didn't get, the results she wanted, but she was an incredibly successful agent. And by not being tied to the results, she kind of checked the box of, okay, that one didn't work. Next, I'm just going to move on.
Yeah. And the power in that is that this person had created a business model. They'd created an engine that put them in front of a lot of people, that they weren't hanging on the attachment of the one person that they were putting all their eggs in that basket. And that's in any walk of life. If we're counting on that one deal to the point where it becomes out of balance and we lose sight of the fact that, you got to take a lot of shots. I mean, no matter what you're doing. And the ability for you to be informed, be in rhythm, be confident in how you do that, that's the shots will keep coming. It's how you perform with each one of those shots. I was listening to, I wanted, for those of you that know the name Jack Nicklaus, he's certainly top 2 golfers of all time. I wanted to get his perspective on focus. And so I Googled Jack Nicklaus on focus. And Jack Nicklaus obviously did the legwork and the time he spent in practice, but it was also about the visualization. But what his key was, before any of the sports psychologists came forward with this, he not only visualized where he wanted the ball to go, he visualized what his swing was going to be. He saw it from a third perspective. So whatever that environment that we're going into, we have the opportunity to be prepared. We have the confidence level of that, but it's also, what is the intention of how we want it to go? And how do we see ourselves acting in the moment to give ourselves that best opportunity. The questions that come forward from that perspective become dynamic, they become true, and most importantly, they become really authentic. So,
Yeah. Can I add to that?
yeah, please.
So it's funny, at a meeting a few months ago, I put a baseball picture up, and I did a walk-on. So I don't know, you've all probably watched baseball games where every player gets to choose their walk-on song. And that walk-on song, while it seems kind of silly, it actually puts the mindset of that player into whatever they want. So what I tell people is, look, do all that preparedness. And when you're on your way to that meeting, turn up your walk-on song so that you are just washed with that energy that, you know, has you dancing and singing in your car on the way to that appointment. So when you get there, you have the enthusiasm. I promise you, people hire you because you're enthusiastic. That's one of the key attributes. If you don't have enthusiasm for their property, they're not going to hire you. I promise.
Right.
So you've got to show up enthusiastic.
What's the walk-on song, pal? I want to know. I got mine. What's yours?
So mine back when I was selling real estate was Style Council, Shout to the Top. And I would be in the car screaming, shout to the top, you know, screaming that song.
All right. Mine, for those that have known me for a while, was Barry White's Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe. And the fascinating thing about that, you know, as I'm a young broker out there, having that song was kind of like my internal security blanket. I was my darling, and I'm singing that song as I'm walking through the house. I'm listening to everybody, but it keeps me grounded, right? I'm not trying to get ahead of myself. It's just a great in the moment inspire. So thank you so much for bringing that up, and thank you, Barry White, for being part of my life. So here's number 3. So we're too attached to the outcome. Can we be really candid with everybody? You don't have anything yet. You have nothing to lose. You're asking for something that you don't have. So to go into this future fantasy, okay, I'm going to ask for this, I'm going to get it, and then this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and my life's going to change, and they go, oh God, what if I don't get it? And then you have to unravel all of that attachment energy that you put into it. If you go into the thing neutrally saying, I don't have this listing yet, I don't have this raise yet, I don't have whatever it is I'm asking for, so how am I doing without it? Am I going to survive? Yeah, I'm going to survive if we take it to that level. And so the ask becomes that much more easy to have the words tumble out of your mouth, because whatever the answer is, you then have the opportunity then to engage in conversation. So that's some of the toughest things, especially if the rent is due, and especially in this time when the mortgage is due and the cash flows are not working the same way. Our asks could have a real undercurrent of desperation and attachment to them. The more we can play to this consciousness of, let's educate first, let's be of service, let's know that we've done the work, we are worthy to receive, and start to go out there and start asking lots of people for what we need and checking in with them all. But with each ask, please, 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 the attachment to the outcome is a death blow. Remind yourself you don't have it yet. That is a tremendous antidote for me, always has been. Patrick, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, I had a partner, so to speak, when I was 22 at TRI Real Estate. And for like 6 months, we would cold call and get appointments, and we'd go on appointments. And I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out, but when we would go on these appointments, the desperation of my partner and his need to close deals, to the point where he would say things during the meetings that we'd leave the meeting, and I would say to him, that's not true. How could you have, you know, told them that? And so ultimately people figure it out. And in this business, you know, your reputation is all you have. And if you do your best and take care of people every single day, the clients will keep coming in the door. But if you don't do that, the clients will not come through the door. And so it's super important that you not be tied to those results in such a way.
Yeah, and then if a person, you know, a client that you've been working with for an extended period of time has a change of heart, that is a very demoralizing moment. It can be very frustrating. You've invested the time and the energy, and they say it's not worth. Patrick says to me, Nick, I need to take a pause right now. If I'm anything but gracious, if I'm anything but honoring of where Patrick is in the moment and my ability to say I understand. Patrick is going to push away. He's not going to remember all the things that we did up until that moment. He's just going to remember, wow, I pissed Nick off. I don't want to deal with him when I do re-engage. And then you've lost all of that. Again, the reason why you need to have the machine in place with all the tools that you have at your disposal to make sure you're engaging with lots of people. That's the value of time put to good use. Asking these questions so you get clear about who you're going to work with and who truly wants to work with you, and letting those that don't and aren't go. That's how you maximize the time, and that's how you spend it efficiently. So the last one is the idea that which is the antidote for assuming that you're not going to get it anyway. If you focus from an educating perspective, from that service perspective, and say, hey, listen, you can put the assumption in the question, you may have already worked this out, but I'm just asking for my own edification. Could you do this? Could we do this? Is there an opportunity here? Fill in the blank. That ability to come at it from the perspective of an educator, it's so freeing to ask almost any question you want, because from that place, you're like, oh, you don't need my assistance right now? That's cool. And it gives us that freedom. So those are the antidotes that we've come up with. There's a question here. Let's say we've been hired by the owner of a watch company that needs to sell X percentage of his business in order to add capital. Ooh, this is good. And the key team members to his business. Would you say that it's about 60% trust built with the chair and 40% of your work that makes things happen? Or what are the elements that you would consider to sell and or help build corporations? Okay, I love this question. Let's distill it to anything. Whatever your product is, if it's a service that you are selling, if it's watches and that's the product, how does your watch or how does your service fill a void that's otherwise not there in the marketplace? What is the white space that's currently in that environment? Is it price point for the quality of the watch in this case? Is it the exclusivity of this watch that where you're now looking to another marketplace that has disposable income? They've already got 30 watches, but your watch is the 31st watch they need to have. Whatever that product is, it's your own internal research that you do first. It is your own belief that the value that you've put on that watch relative to the marketplace and who your audience is defines the efficiency with which you then promote it and how you then ask for what it is that you want. In 48 seconds or less, that's the response I have in the moment. But again, it does come down to these foundational principles of what is the landscape around you, what is the perception of the competition, because ultimately the competition is only in here and in here. And if you connect those two with your gut, you will perform to the best of your ability based on what you know in that moment. You may or may not get it, but you will leave it all out on the floor, as I like to say, and that's the most important thing that I would bring you. And by the way, I love some of the songs, the entry. So Eye of the Tiger. We've got This Girl Is on Fire. Keep them coming. I love that. So let's, Patrick, anything you got as I check my notes? You good?
You know, I agree with you on that last question. You have to understand your value proposition, whether you're, again, selling a watch or selling real estate. You have to know what you bring to that equation. It's absolutely crucial.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the tough questions. Now, in many respects, if you consider the question you're scared to ask, it probably falls in the tough question. That's a tough question, boy. I don't know how, if I really want to ask that question. And so often we can just translate that to being the questions we're scared to ask. In candor, I have come to the point and the conclusion that there are no tough questions. They're the questions that, because if we've done our preparation and if we have our belief in ourselves and we are coming at it from a place of, I'm just here to educate you, to listen to what you have to say, understand what your need is. And I guess one of the tough questions that could be perceived in a sensitive situation, especially right now, is do you want to sell or do you need to sell? Now, we've talked about that question through the course of time and in our collective 30 years of experience, or individual. We're at 60 if we're collective, Patrick, you and I. But this idea of, do you really need to sell? See, Because if you understand that you're trying to educate someone and you need the information to find out what their true motivation is, a tough question could be perceived as, how much longer can you stay in this house before you're going to be foreclosed on? Now, many people say that's too sensitive a question. I could never ask that question of someone. But if you don't have that information, guess what you're doing? You're not able to truly understand what the urgency of the situation is. But moreover, the person that you're asking the question may not have considered the question that you're about to ask as well. And the fact that you've asked the question may give that person the ability to really consider what their urgency is in earnest, as opposed to, I've been in a fog about this. You're now really bringing this front and center to me. I got to deal with this. And when we come from that place of service, we can also tap into our empathy with what's going on. And the empathy is organic and it's real because we're there to be of service. So those are my thoughts on tough questions. Patrick, anything you'd like to add on that from that perspective of what is the tough question and what stops us from asking it?
Yeah, I don't think there are tough questions. And I probably thought completely differently 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. But the truth be told, when you're asking questions, you're just educating yourself. And in a way, you're educating the person that you're working with, because again, you're giving them a perspective of things that they might not have thought about, that they should be thinking about. And you're also giving yourself the information you need to properly, frame work in what is the issue at hand and how are we going to deal with it. So yeah, I just don't believe in tough questions. I think every question's fair game.
Yeah, and if you truly embrace that, I think the embracing in it is just that I truly understand that I have an opportunity to be of service here, and I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm not in that sell mind, and if we play to that, we play at a much greater level. Jim, I saw that you had a question. We'll see if we open it up to you. Let's just keep rolling here for a moment. You're welcome to type it in the immediate. Okay, so how do you deal with doubt? Doubt is I embrace doubt. I embrace other people's doubt because as I come at it from a place of education, when someone says, well, I'm not sure, the fact that they voiced it is a gift, because I then can say, well, please tell me, what aren't you sure about? Chris Voss, and who's getting all sorts of press right now, and has a lot of great things to say about negotiation. He's a former FBI hostage negotiator, right? And I know that he's been through the Compass circuit very much so, and great stuff. He does a lot of mirroring questions. So I heard it in his master's class. He's talking to a hostage. They stole my van. They stole your van. He's just repeating, he's mirroring what they're saying. But I take it one step further, and that's out of context, so forgive me, Chris. But the idea is this: if someone says, I have doubt about something, my question is, what is the doubt? Maybe we can work through it together. It's done from a place of service. Where we have to really be present with people is when they're not saying they have a doubt, right? We've all been in a conversation with someone and they go, well, and they kind of look off, right? They're gone. They're not in that discussion with you anymore. They're in their own ether. Your ability to bring them back by posing the question that most people are scared of, I'm sensing there's doubt, or I'm sensing there's apprehension. What is that apprehension? And may I be of service to help you work through it? That is a wonderful and fertile ground opportunity for you to really dive into what's really going on. And if you've come at it from that place of, I'm here to be of service and I'm not trying to sell you on something, you stand a far greater likelihood that they're going to share what's really up for them. So I embrace that. What are your thoughts on that, Patrick?
Totally agree. As long as you always approach the situation from, their shoes first, walking, a mile in their shoes, you're always going to get further along. And that's true, certainly in relationships, friendships, but certainly in business as well.
Yeah. And the less we offer our advice and our opinions, you should do this. You should. As soon as I hear you should, I go, woo, I'm done. I have blanked you out. I do my level best to meet someone where they are and then offer things for consideration. You may want to consider this. You may want to consider that. We could consider this if you're trying to help them through with the negotiation. If I got you this information, could that help you with your doubt or your questioning? But the ability, it's all done from that perspective. Can you talk through the question while we're on this, the need to sell? The need to sell, we don't control the marketplace. We don't control those dynamics. We control how we insert ourselves and introduce ourselves to that market. And so if someone has a need to sell, the first thing you're gonna do is look at the landscape, right? You're gonna say, and you're gonna bring them along for that education process. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna bring you behind the curtain. We're gonna analyze each and every one of these comps, and we're gonna analyze each and every one of our competitors are right now. And I need you to, as much as you can, divorce yourself from your attachment to your home in this case, and look at it from a buyer's eyes. And let's really say, which house would you buy? Well, let's bring in a couple of your friends, people that you really trust. Let's get their opinion. You don't have to be in this silo with your client. Bring in your peers. And I've never heard this before, and it's just coming to me now. Bring in their own friends. If you have friends that you truly trust and they know your situation, can we get their objectivity as we look at this? I mean, what you're doing is you're showing people a side of you that is tremendous. You're also creating new relationships. I don't want to, take advantage of anything, but at the end of the day, everything is an opportunity based on how we position ourselves. So what is the question, the most effective communication points in a cold new business email? Ask questions. Ask questions that fill the white space. That's how I would do it. What help do you need right now? As opposed to, this is how great I am. What do you need? I want, as quickly as possible, I want to get them to engage with me by telling me what's most important to them. Who cares what's important to me in that moment? Those are my thoughts. Patrick, any thoughts on that?
You definitely need to meet people where they are today. I think so many of us are going through so many different experiences with the shelter in place. The experience I'm having is, it's almost, I don't want to say it's a vacation, but I've never been able to spend so much time with my family, with my wife, cooking, reading, exercising, because I've been working every day for 32 years. So my experience versus my mother's experience, where she can't be social because she's in a high risk category and she's by herself and she's feeling anxious and she's feeling lonely and she's feeling, scared. You have to meet people where they are. I've talked to, hundreds of the real estate professionals that work with us over the last month. And I'm amazed, some that are incredibly successful, that have big bank accounts, that have done really well, are very scared of tomorrow. And others don't. So it's everyone's in a different place, and you need to meet them where they are. And when you're dealing with clients, what you need to share with them is every decision we make has to be based on the facts. So I'm on a facts mission. I always want to be able to give you whatever facts you need to know about the market, but I also need as much facts as I can get from you so that we can come up with the best game plan. And with facts, we make great decisions. Without the facts, we can't really make the best decisions.
Yeah, we're making subjective opinions, right? And that's not a way to build, because when you base something on a fact, you have that to go fall back on when in a moment of doubt, which we're going to, which also plays to that dynamic of doubt. When you have concrete facts, it's tough to challenge them. It's tough to doubt them, right? And so I love that, Patrick. It's a great foundation in terms of part of that strategy, part of that preparation. Let me bring the facts. Okay, you want my opinion on something? Let me bring the facts, and then we can move forward from that perspective, and we'll draw a conclusion that we have confidence and faith in. So let's talk about I don't know. So we asked the question, hey Patrick, well, you asked me a question, Patrick, and I'm going to give you the answer that you probably know. You ask me any question you'd like.
So are you ready to list your property with me in Pebble Beach?
Ooh, golly, I don't know. So that's one of those questions you're like, okay, where do I go from here? And this does not always work, but nothing always works, right? the idea of asking a question back. Well, I appreciate that. If you did know, what do you think? What would come present? What information do you need to get the clarity so that you do know? So in the case of, am I ready to list my house for Pebble Beach? I go, well, can you get me, because I really love it, Patrick, you know, and I'm going up there Friday and with the family. And I mean, if you could get me twice what it's worth on paper, I would list it with you at that point. At least now we have a qualification, right? So whether I'm out of my mind or not, which is probably
no. Now we just know you're greedy.
Exactly. You now know how to talk to me, right?
You're a homeowner, not a home seller.
There we go. So what it does is it any way that you can keep a conversation moving into a field of where are the facts, where are the definitive next action steps, where are there the open-ended questions that need clarity to help with the momentum and moving forward. That's the design of trying to pierce the veil, as I'll call it, of an I don't know response. And when someone says to me, I don't know, depending on the situation, I will 90% of the time ask a follow-up question. So is there specific information that you need at this time that would assist you with getting the clarity so that maybe you go from an I don't know to maybe I'm getting my arms around a possible decision. And again, if I have the consciousness, I'm just here to help. I've got all sorts of information. I've got access to things that can help you with your education process. I have great confidence in my ability, depending on what you need and when you need it. And from that place, I'm here to help. So, and if there's nothing else I can give you in this moment and you just need the time to think, absolutely. But again, that's a very soft response. There's no, well, if you did know, well, you know, there's no arrogance, so there's no take-sell kind of dynamic in that. And that's the softness that needs to come when you're trying to work people through. Because really what it is there are doubts that they have. I don't know what to do. And so you can fall back into the whole consciousness of, let me help you get clear with facts, as Patrick shared, or whatever it is, so that you have that dynamic moving forward. Patrick, anything you want to add to that?
You know, just I think a great approach when you get to that sort of standoff of I don't know is, you know, okay, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything else I can answer for you? If not, where would you like to go from here? And give it back to them. So again, it doesn't feel like you're taking something from them. It sounds like, okay, I really care most about you and what you want. So where would you like to go from here? And that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So the next dynamic that we want to touch on, and we've got about 12 minutes left, so we're doing great. The idea of when you don't have a contract, how do you keep someone engaged with you? And what is the question that you can ask to build that good faith, as it were? Jimmy Martinez was talking about that our business is a good faith business. And oftentimes as we're developing our relationships, we don't have a contract. I mean, we can talk about asking for the buyer broker agreement to come forward and playing to that. That's a whole nother strategy session. But again, asking for that, all of these philosophies and techniques apply directly. But this idea of, I don't have a contract with you. So I'm a huge proponent of definitive next action steps. So if Patrick and I were wrapping up a conversation, I'd shown him some houses today, or I've gone to list his house, and we're like, okay, well, that's great information. Let me think about it, right? I will always say, I appreciate that. Is there a time when we can get back together? Is there time you'd like me to follow up with you? And I get very specific. What does Tuesdays or Thursdays work? And is it 3 o'clock? Is it 10 a.m. in the morning? What works for you so that I can be prepared with the information that I need to do as we separate, and then so that I'm ready to re-engage with you and make it a meaningful dialogue when we get back together. But the essence of that communication, I do not leave a conversation with, okay, see you later. I mean, I'll leave that after I've gotten a definitive next action step. So is there a technique that you've employed, Patrick, to keep, to support that dynamic when you don't have a contract?
Yeah, absolutely. And one agent in particular in my Burlingame office is incredibly good at this. And it's really about, contracts, of course, are important and they need to be in our business because we're obviously dealing with very expensive homes. But at the end of the day, I think it's about expectations and about building that trust. And so expectations and trust is what I think about is to me way more important than a contract. So if I sit down with a prospective buyer and I say, hey, I'm not going to have you sign a buyer broker agreement because look, I'd rip it up if you didn't want to work with me anyway. So there's really no reason to sign one. But what I will tell you is this is how this business works and walk them through the fact that you only get paid when and if they buy a piece of property. So your goal is the same as their goal. Their goal is to buy a piece of property. Your goal is to find them that perfect property that you can sell them, and then walk them through, hey, you're going to see a lot of properties. There's going to be people calling you and telling about properties. Finding you the property is not the hard part. The hard part is doing all the things that after we've built up this trust, you're going to feel very comfortable when we write an offer, when we get into a sticky situation, we have to negotiate those contingencies, when we have a problem with the loan and you see me go to bat for you to make sure that loan gets done. So it's really about making sure you've got clear expectations of each other and that you build that trust through that time period, having those expectations.
Yeah, and what you've just demonstrated is the whole education process, right? It's not like, I need you to sign this document. It's like, we're in this together. And the way you educate them through that brings the humanity into it as well, right? Loyalty becomes, listen, I got to go with Patrick. Look at all the work he's done. He doesn't get paid till I buy the house and he's busted his ass for me. Does that always happen? No, it doesn't happen. But you know what? You got to know that going in. You don't, I've long since sacrificed the idea that every potential client that I have is going to work with me. They're not. You don't have them yet. Again, go back to those anecdotes. Let it go. Give the best of who you are and let the organic, authentic relationship keep them choosing back to you as well, because you keep demonstrating your proficiency, your professionalism, and your honoring and caring of them. So I want to close with one last thing. What's the most important question we can ask? And it's why. Why are you doing this? Why? Fill in the blank of whatever it is, because that's going to get to the ultimate motivation of why someone does anything. Why do we want to go here? Why are you selling your home? Because if you get to that essence of why they're doing it, that is your touch point that you will keep coming back to during the course and the dynamic of the relationship, which the vast majority of it's going to be the negotiation, right? People get emotions. They fly along the way, and especially in the business of real estate. If you know a seller's why, and somewhere along the process, that buyer is being whatever they're being, and the seller gets emotionally upset, well, screw these people, I don't want to work with them anymore. Let's remember why we're doing this and that they are just a vehicle for you to get what you want. It's a great way to educate. It's also a great way to modulate someone's emotional perspective and keep them tracked beyond the times that they even have the wisdom or the clarity to be see that vision, because we get blinded by our emotion and our distraction. So Patrick, I know you have some thoughts on that. So I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, look, do a deep dive, especially right now when you've got the luxury of time, into why you. What is it that makes you special, unique, wonderful to work with? And then always put the people you're working with first. Always make their goals paramount so that ultimately you will end up getting what you need out of life. I say if you take care of everybody every day, and the rest just follows, the rest just happens. So be true to yourself, know what your value is, and approach life as taking care of others, and you will reap the rewards.
Yeah, that's when we have faith in that. When we've tried all the other options that don't work. When it comes out, well, what am I left with? I'm left with me, right? Am I enough? Well, if I'm not, if I ask myself that question, I go, no. I don't need to go any further. What do I need to do so that I get to that place where I'm enough? There's a question that came up of what do you do with unrealistic sellers? You get to their why. Why are you selling? If they don't need to sell, they're demonstrating their unrealistic expectations. Let them go. How about this? How about you list with somebody else at that number? Don't let them give you a price reduction, right? Sign a 60-day agreement. If you need to test the market, see how that goes. If a needle in a haystack comes forward, fantastic. If not, I'm ready to list your house. I'll even take a listing 60 days from tomorrow. So go find that broker, list them for 60, but we got a contract 60 days out thereafter, and we'll get the job done. I mean, I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but not necessarily a bad idea. We'd have to ask Sam Kramer his thoughts on that. But the dynamic is, if someone tells you their why and it's authentic, they will be realistic, because they're going to be open to you shepherding them through the process so they can get the realization of why they started the process. That's how I would answer that. It is 56 minutes into this. Patrick, any closing thoughts that you have?
Just everybody, I miss you. Take care of yourselves. Be safe and stay healthy.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. And my encouragement to each and every person listening in is, what can you focus on now to enhance the preparation, which then creates the confidence that when we go back out there, you are ready to spit nails. Those that are not doing the work right now, they're not in their own internal gyms and really honing their skills right now, it's going to be a very tough road for them. Let's not be that group. We are the group that wins. We've got tremendous support, and you have some tremendous supports in your own environments, in your own homes, in your families. Reach out to each other, love each other up a lot, and we'll get through this. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week at 1 o'clock. Thanks.
Thanks.